Kara's story. At about age 6, I realized I was different than my family and people around me. I often felt like I was in the wrong family because it appeared from their reactions that no one thought or felt like I did. My experience was that I was either too much or not enough. Due to the discomfort that arose from being me, I found my first solace in imagination and daydreaming. Escaping my reality to a world I imagined was my first drug of choice. In that world, I was accepted, included, and belonged. My heart ached to find others like me. My ears perked when I heard about a far-removed cousin or aunt who was in trouble with drugs. I didn't know much about this, but I was intrigued by the hush of whispering, the danger that loomed in bits and pieces of stories I heard. I did not have relationships with these extended family members, but I knew in my heart that somehow I was like them. The outcasts, the rebels, the creative beings whose emotions and thoughts were so big. I knew that if I could meet them, we would have some unsaid bond. My home was a middle-class Italian-Irish household. My father worked various tech jobs while my mother stayed home to tend to us children. When Dad returned home from work, he would have a beer or two. Wine was served at dinner with guests and liquor on special occasions. I detested the smell and had no interest in alcohol or cigarettes, which in the 1980s it seemed everyone smoked and smoked everywhere. However, at the age of 14, the perception of being left out, of not belonging, of criticism for being myself, continued to frustrate me. And I often isolated myself further, with fantasies in the solace of my room. As a teen, I was confused navigating my social life. Budding friendships blossomed one day, then crashed the next day as I was picked on by my peers. The moodiness and disloyalty amongst peers impacted my feelings of isolation and of feeling different. At home in the solace of my room, I would replay these interactions and rewrite them to be accepted and valued instead of teased or rejected. The ongoing commentary, intrusive thoughts, and self-absorption I felt as I compared myself to my peers was painful. Then one ordinary day, I took one of Dad's beers and drank it really fast. For the first time, the thoughts stopped. The self-conscious nervousness eased. I continued to drink daily but found that I would black out, so I needed to be careful. I started to hang around with punks, goths, skaters, and metalheads. Like them, I was exploring who I was and what this world was, and experimenting with a plethora of substances. I dropped out of high school. I ran away from home. I was a fixture at the local mall and at nightclubs, which stayed open until 4 a.m. I recall more than one occasion coming to with people I had just met, walking in stocking feet in downtown San Jose or in San Francisco as the sun came up. As for my choice of substances, I didn't ask when you held out your hand with pills, powders, pipes, or liquids. I took them all with a smile, influenced by Jack Daniels. At 17, I came to 5 months pregnant. I had a few boyfriends within my circle of friends. My self-esteem was nil, and the yearning to be accepted led to complicated romances, obscured boundaries, and much heartache. The attachment to being wanted and valued oscillated with thoughts of self-annihilation. But when I found out I was pregnant, I felt I had a reason to live. Flashes of budding flowers, the ocean, trees in the forest, sunbeams. All the beauty in the natural world came to me. I wanted to show my daughter all these things of wonder. Overnight, I stopped using substances for her. At the time, one could not attend school with a child, so I finished high school via independent studies a year later than my friends. After enrolling in junior college, I was reintroduced to meditation through yoga, a practice I recalled watching as a child on the show Lilius Yoga and You on our little black and white television. I was intrigued. I was gifted Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, and integrated these practices in my daily life. When I was washing dishes, I practiced knowing I was washing dishes. When I was changing the baby's diaper, I practiced knowing I was changing the baby's diaper. Being with my breath during times of stress and times of ease. Being present. I felt as though there was space for everything, and there were more instances of ease when I was out of the way. The interesting thing is that when I started to read and practice more of the Dharma, it felt like I already knew these practices. It felt like coming home. I stayed abstinent for a couple years until college. People say you pick up where you left off and that it gets worse. That was my experience. It became much worse. I entered into an abusive relationship, which landed me in the hospital due to physical abuse and neglecting my health. I stayed out of relationships for a bit, then landed in another one that was tumultuous, with more physical and emotional abuse and an abundance of methamphetamine. All of my yets, you're eligible to, were happening. All except that I was not incarcerated, my partner was, and I did not die, though I came close numerous times. I was 23 when my boss told me that if I wanted to keep my job, I needed to go to a 12-step meeting. I remember thinking, the audacity of my employer. It was a job at a local art film theater in which all of us worked and used drugs together. In hindsight, this was an intervention. My boss went with me to the meeting, and afterwards we went to the bar and had a beer. Neither of us knew that this was not what one does when trying to get sober from substances. I did not continue attending those meetings. I quit my job and my life spiraled out of control for 6 months, resulting in an overdose in April 1996. Regret, grief, sorrow, and hopelessness overcame me. I was on the floor when I came to, and shortly after, I called my mother. For the first time, or maybe it was the first time that I listened, she told me with tears that she could no longer help me and that I may die from my addiction. With despair and what felt like having a faint pulse and being near death, I geared up. Literally. It took me 8 hours to get ready to go to a noon 12-step meeting, the same one I'd been introduced to by my old boss. Except this time, I announced myself. This time I listened. This time I stayed. A couple of weeks in, I started outpatient counseling with an addiction specialist. I worked with him for almost 90 days, then acquired a sponsor, a mentor to work through the 12 steps. I chose this woman because her hair was 3 different colors, she practiced meditation, and part of her story was hijacking a plane to marry one of the Beatles. I thought, this woman will not put up with my bullshit and has likely heard it all. During this time, a few friends and I started a weekly women's recovery group that included Vipassana meditation and mindfulness practices. That group lasted for many years, ebbing and flowing, but the practice was always the same. Abstinence, meditation, sharing recovery challenges and strengths, talking about the solution, and agreeing to guidelines of wise speech. I didn't know it at the time, but it gave me a foundation that was familiar when I later joined Buddhist recovery communities. I married someone also in recovery, and we did service work together, creating a robust and vibrant community. We had a son and bought a house. I continued to hold the women's groups. I've often heard that when we become abstinent and practice mindfulness in as many moments as we can, we will feel better. Better does not mean happy. Better means to feel with the opportunity to know all the sensations of that moment. Happy, sad, worried, irritated, lost, joy, all of it. One lesson for me came in 2008, a difficult year because 3 people closest to me died. I lost my house, and my daughter went through a traumatic event. One of those who died was my husband, who was killed by someone driving under the influence of alcohol. I found myself parenting on my own again, with an 18-year-old and a 3-year-old. It was overwhelming that one day, life is like this and the next, it is like that. And yet, this is one of the greatest teachings, Anicca, that nothing stays the same and everything changes. All is impermanent. That is not to say I did not grieve or ponder late into the night, questioning who I was. My meditation practice and the support of people in a recovery community who mentored me throughout the first decade of abstinence instilled a confidence or faith in myself. I was in pain, but I did not once think about using a substance to alleviate it. Cravings did not remove me from reality, but helped me to immerse myself in my breath, in the sensations, in the grief in order to understand it. I could only do this because I knew it too would pass, because it too was impermanent. This way of relating to myself allowed me to show up in the world with perseverance, compassion, and courage, utilizing every experience as an opportunity to connect with myself and others, and share in the depth of what it means to be human. I was asked to speak at recovery meetings about my experience. I spoke at DUI classes, telling my story to folks stuck in the cycle of alcoholism and driving while intoxicated. I wanted to both educate people about the effects of alcoholism, as well as support myself in processing the loss. When my son was old enough for me to leave him with a sitter, I started attending meditation retreats. This allowed my nervous system to settle, for the internal chatter to settle, and to meet what bubbles up underneath, which is often what I distract myself from feeling. I soon moved closer to the ocean and took refuge in a local Buddhist meditation center, eventually becoming a community Dharma teacher at Insight Santa Cruz. My focus was on the heart practices, Brahma Viharas, the intersection of the Eightfold Path and recovery, and the foundations of mindfulness. In 2013, a friend shared the manuscript of his upcoming book about Buddhist recovery. The components of this program were exactly what I was practicing. It was amazing to create a local, then global community that integrated meditation and mindfulness practices with abstinence and wise action to be free of entanglements of the mind while building a life within community. For 5 years, I was very active in that community. I managed retreats, co-hosted conferences, and engaged in the daily work of fostering a refuge for suffering folks who were clinging to greed, hatred, and delusion in order to eradicate it. Being part of this eclectic sangha was thrilling. Here were the punks, goths, skaters, and metalheads practicing while listening to great music, the music we grew up on. However, as with all things, there is always the 3 marks of existence: dukkha, suffering; anicca, impermanence; and anatta, not self. This Buddhist recovery community was heavily influenced by unhealthy masculinity and inequities among leaders. Great heartache ensued as people were harmed and a sangha was fractured. In 2019, another Buddhist recovery program and community was created. Recovery Dharma emphasizes trauma-informed approaches and an egalitarian leadership within a diverse community. I moved my effort and energy into this new community as it aligned with the practices of not harming others, taking only what is offered, respecting relationships, being truthful, and practicing abstinence. In short, the 5 precepts, in a way that invited transparency and collaboration among members of the sangha. It is beautiful that there are many approaches, many paths, all pointing to the same destination, to be free from the 3 poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion. To be free of that which entangles the mind and obscures the heart. To be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Recovery is a process. It is not an event, but a journey. Along the way, we will meet many people. Some will activate unpleasant feelings, but these are our greatest teachers. Some will evoke pleasant feelings where we become attached. These too are our teachers. This ongoing practice teaches us to lean in, be curious, make an effort to understand, and let go. I am no longer pushing away experiences with myself or others, and I'm not clinging to experiences. I am somewhere in the middle. I'm not attached but aware and engaged. It is a daily, moment-to-moment practice, walking the middle path. It is in this practice that I befriended my own heart and made space for yours. It is in the Dharma that I continue to uncover, discover, and recover my true nature. I will share what was told to me by many others I met along this path. Don't take my word for it. See for yourself.